Hi, it's Griggs of Obsidian Wisdom. Today we answer the question, how do I train myself to be consistent? Consistency is important not only for our goals with our family when it comes to generational wealth, it's not only important for our goals with financial freedom, your desires for happiness, success. When it comes to consistency, it is not an exaggeration to say it is the key to everything that you want out of life. It is important to teach your children to make sure that they understand. In fact, when we go over how do people achieve financial freedom, what attributes those people have, you'll find their ability to get themselves to do what they need to do, invest where they need to invest, and take the certain actions that they know will get the result is always going to be the difference maker. Whether you want to talk about someone who can lose weight because they're able to consistently work out, they don't allow the things happening in the here and now to deter them from their long term goals. As someone who's often had difficulty maintaining a certain weight, I know how difficult being consistent is, even though it is something that I pride myself on in many other aspects of my life. The reality is, if you want to train yourself to be consistent, it starts with setting realistic expectations. If you set realistic expectations in the beginning and you understand the likelihood of success, you understand how long it's supposed to take, you won't be discouraged by the first sign of things not working. If we already know, and that's one of the things I often do, anytime I work with someone and we put an investment plan together, I always tell them what the average return will be, but I tell them what the highest will be and I tell them what the lowest will be. This is historically the worst year this type of portfolio has ever performed. We just make sure you put that information out ahead of time because it significantly increases the likelihood of someone maintaining their investment plan because they already knew ahead of time. Versus if you were told that it's always rainbows and Skittles, then every day is going to feel like a Friday. Then, as soon as it feels like a Monday, you're going to say, wait a minute, Dre, you said every day was going to feel like a Friday. I'm out of here. And so it becomes very important that you are very upfront and honest with yourself, which requires you to do some research. You can't set a realistic expectation without actually doing the research to know what realistic would be. If we're trying to lose weight, it may be nice to find a male and a female who has achieved the desired result that you want on the diet that you're thinking about doing. If you're going to start a new career or start a company or something like that, it is always beneficial to not only ask the people about the position you're interviewing for, but it would be nice if you could even talk to a couple of the teammates, see what they say their average day in the life is like. And now, naturally, if you ask them directly, they're going to probably say everything is rainbows and skittles, everything's lovely, I have no problems, no situations here. But when you ask a certain question, you can get a very specific answer, and they don't know that they're giving you the information that you need. So maybe you ask them how many people here have families, and then you get an idea of whether that job is conducive to people having children and maintaining a certain job. You can ask someone who's in a higher position how long they've been at the company, and that could tell you whether they promote from the inside or whether they bring someone in from the outside and put them on top of everybody. You have so many ways to get the information that you need. Once I have a reasonable expectation, I then need to know how likely is success versus how likely is failure. Most of the time that you hear me talk about things, I normally talk about things as percentages and ratios. There is a 70% chance someone 65 and older will have a long term care issue, that 65% of people are living paycheck to paycheck in the United States. I like to use ratios because it lets you know whether it is probable and highly likely or whether it has happened, but it is very unlikely, slim to none. And when you think about risk from a financial perspective, where financial catastrophe means that I lose everything versus it's a little bit of a bump in the road, I lose a little bit. And then you need to know if it's very likely that this will happen or if it's not very likely this will happen. When it comes to handling financial risk, I often tell people if there is a financial catastrophe component tied to something where if this happens, it is going to blow everything up. It's going to blow up my family, my lifestyle. It's going to ruin everything. Then I say, sure, we have to ensure that. We don't want to take that risk, even though there may not be the highest probability of something happening, because if it happens, it would be so devastating. We normally say that we should ensure that. Now, it'd be great if we can ensure things that have a high probability of happening and it has a high expense of happening. But insurance companies aren't in the business of doing that either. Most of the time, really, when it comes down to something that would be a financial catastrophe, something that would be very expensive and very likely to happen, you generally are supposed to avoid those type of things. If it's something that would be very expensive to happen, but is not very likely to happen, well, insurance companies like that type of a scenario because they're going to get risk premium from us. And then if something is to happen, they understand that they will have to pay it out, but it's not likely to happen. But at the same time, we understand that it could happen and it's in our family's best interest to protect them. When it comes to you being consistent in achieving the goals that you want, whether it has to do with your happiness, success, or your will, you want to make sure that you take the time to understand what is the likelihood of success? Is this even worth investing my time in? Is the risk too great or is the success very likely? What often happens is we'll do something that has a very low probability of success, and then it really discourages us when it doesn't work out. But if we knew what the probability was, then we would already have said, this is not going to be the path that works for me, which is very important when it comes to your ability to be consistent. I remember reading an article about The Biggest Loser. And if you don't know, The Biggest Loser was a show where people who were significantly overweight would work out for maybe a couple months. They would be in this boot camp kind of atmosphere and they would just grind and see how much weight they would lose. And that person would be the biggest loser who would win the show. Well, the numbers show that the majority of people who went on The Biggest Loser and lost all that weight did not maintain the weight that they lost. So if you were someone who was trying to go on The Biggest Loser because you thought that it would help you lose a bunch of weight and then you'd be able to keep it off, I would say, hey, look, the majority of people who go on The Biggest Loser do not keep the weight off. This is not going to work for you. You can really do this with a lot of things, right? Like Bachelor and the Bachelorette. The majority of the people on that TV show, guess what? They don't last. It doesn't work out. So if you're trying to find true love, you probably shouldn't go on The Bachelorette. You get what I'm saying? If you know the probability of something happening and you know it is unlikely to happen, we can skip right away. I often do that with investment strategies. When people say, I like cryptocurrency, I say, well, statistically speaking, it's very volatile. And sure, there are some people who made a lot of money, but there are a whole lot more who have lost all of their money. The numbers bear that out when it comes to option trading as well. Sure, there are people who make a significant amount of money leveraging options, right? If you can leverage your money and you're able to make $100, but now you can make $100,000 because you can leverage it, yeah, that sounds good. But when I tell you that 95% of people who trade options lose their money, you should be able to say, okay, well, that probability doesn't work. And you really could do that with any decision where if you're able to say, this doesn't really have a great probability of success, or it's not going to achieve the goal exactly the way I wanted it, whether because it's a short term fad, a crash diet, or it's going to be the next fad investment, then I would say don't do that because it's going to discourage you from maintaining it because something's going to happen. You're going to gain the weight back, you're going to lose some money. As a result, you may say, all right, this doesn't work. I'm not going to invest. This doesn't work. I'm not going to try to lose weight. It just doesn't work for me. But I find that for the majority of people who are consistent and they understand the risk that they're taking and they understand the probability of success, by setting yourself up for success, that means you'll have more times to be reinforced positively, which leads us nicely into number three is rewarding yourself is a huge component of being consistent. And why is that? Because all of us love getting positive rewards. It's been shown if you just gamify things, that will do it more likely. And all gamifying means is you get rewards along the way. And it doesn't have to be a huge reward, it just needs to be a consistent reward. You find that in most video games, what they do is they make the first 5 levels very easy. Think of Candy Crush or something like that, where you can just kind of blow through the first 5, 10 levels, but then they get you hooked. By the time you're at level 200, it's very hard. You may play that level for a week, 2 weeks, a month. But because you've built this habit of getting that positive reinforcement, you're able to endure this much longer stretch of work without the reward, even though you're used to getting the reward very quickly and effortlessly. Which means that if you want to be consistent, you have to reward yourself. You have to teach your mind that this is great. This is what we want. Every time we invest our money in our future, we should reward ourselves. And it could be anything, any small thing, a note, a TV show, a pat on the back, a handshake. Heck, it could be like an ice cream cone, a cookie. But what you will notice is by rewarding yourself, you're more excited to do it the next time. And then you keep rewarding yourself and then you do it again and again until it's a habit and the reward means little to you. And I'm almost reluctant to say, but if you've ever had a pet, so I've had dogs most of my life, and if you have to train your dog, at the beginning, they normally tell you train your dog with some sort of a dog treat. And what you'll do is you'll give the dog the treat every time it does the right thing. But then you'll give it every other time. And then you'll just move your hand without the treat being there. And then eventually you can get the dog to do it without even offering anything. And while I'm not calling us dogs or anything like that, what I am saying, if you reward yourself for doing the things that you want to do, you will convince yourself it's worth the time to do it, which is building consistency. That leads you nicely into the fourth one, which is you want to have a feedback loop. A feedback loop is very important for all of us being consistent. One of my favorite lines from the book, Think and Grow Rich, is failure knows no excuse and success needs no alibi. And it's a very clever way of saying if you're failing and you can explain why you're failing, that's not a good place to be. Like, it doesn't really matter that we can explain why everything is wrong in our life Whether it's discrimination or I was overlooked for the position or whatever's been going on, it does not change the fact that we're living inside of a bubble of failure. And then the opposite is also true. If everything around you is going perfectly and you're having the success that you want, it does not matter that you cannot explain your success. Sure, it would be nice to be able to explain your success, but it's okay. Success needs no alibi. I don't have to explain myself. You say it's luck. Sure, I don't care. It doesn't change my life because you think it was luck. I know that it was a grind. I know that I was working at it, building and honing my craft, but I don't need other people to know that. That is the beauty of a feedback loop. Once you're taking certain actions, once you have a plan in place, you're then going to keep following that process and you're going to take the feedback. And it's okay that in the early going, it feels like nothing is working, right? It's no different than if we were working out in the gym. It's no different than when you first started investing. It just feels like nothing is really happening. Like I'm just putting my money in here and it's not working. Then I'm just going to the gym and I'm not gaining any muscle. But we know that if we maintain our process, then we're able to start seeing the result. As we get that feedback loop from keeping track of things, we're then able to see exactly what is happening. Where if you have the same result after a year, well, then sure, we can say, all right, let's tweak this, let's revisit this. We have enough data to be able to make an intelligent decision going forward. I've been making videos on YouTube for several years, but it's really just been the past several months that things have really started clicking. I've been able to look at the data and I've been able to get the feedback where this is the type of content people are looking for. Now, granted, it wasn't something that happened right away. I didn't get the feedback in the beginning. In fact, I think I made videos for the whole first year for all of me, myself, and I. But that was okay. There was no feedback for me, except I guess the feedback was to keep making videos, which is what I did. And that's why on this channel, we focus on solving generational wealth through strategic retirement planning. Because most of you have families, most of you are planning retirement. Most of you understand that retirement is the ability to control all of your time, and generational wealth is the ability to free your children even before the race starts. And because most of you have that focus, I can make a variety of videos that's very beneficial for the goals that you guys have. The final step to you training yourself to be consistent, and that is working with an accountability partner. There's an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. There's also a Bible verse in Ecclesiastes chapter 4 that says, two are better than one because they have a good reward for their toil. For if they fall, one will lift up his fellow. But woe to him who is alone when he falls and has not another to lift him up. Again, if two lie together, they keep warm. But how can one keep warm alone? And though a man might prevail against one who is alone, two will withstand him. A threefold cord is not quickly broken. A lot of the difficulties of consistency is solved when we work with someone else. Whether that is someone that cares about us, a good friend and a confidant because we want to go to the gym and they want to work out too, or whether it's working with a professional, having a CPA or financial planner or someone if you're trying to achieve financial goals. When you're able to work with someone and walk with someone, the benefits usually outweigh the cost. Because for the most part, we all know exactly what we need to do to get the results that we want. But there's a reason that people still hire personal trainers, because sometimes it's hard to get ourselves to do what we know we need to do when we don't always feel like doing it. So it's nice when you're able to borrow someone else's willpower for the days that you don't have it. It's nice when you have someone to bounce ideas off of, to talk you off the ledge. That's why you can go farther when you go with someone. Because if you're going by yourself, sure, you can go fast because you don't have to coordinate, you don't got to plan things, you don't got to ramp it up. But whenever adversity happens, you're probably going to turn around because you don't have anyone else there. You don't have the comfort of knowing that someone else is going to help you carry that burden. You also don't have the reassurance of someone being like, hey, I think we're okay. And you're like, yeah, you think we're okay? And they're like, yeah, we've handled something like this before. We've handled something worse than this. I think we should keep going. And that is why if you want to go farther, you go with someone. You and I both know the most negative things that we hear is the voice inside of our head. We have the one of optimism and hope, and we have the other one of fear and doubt. And if you don't have someone on the outside that you've told your plan to, that understands how it's going to work, to reassure you that, hey, everything is going according to plan. It's exactly as we thought it would be. There's no reason to change our course now. For most of us, if that negative voice keeps growing, we end up stopping. And many of the things that we regret is things that we stopped too early. If you're watching this video, you know that consistency will lead to your happiness, success, and your wealth. And if you follow these 5 strategies, the likelihood of you being consistent increases exponentially. If you like this video, I ask for you to like and subscribe so you can continue receiving valuable information on how to solve generational wealth through strategic retirement planning. Until next time, stay safe and enjoy life.